What's up, guys? My name is Ruben. I have Arthur here with me today. In the past 6 years, we've built over 250 houses, and today we're gonna break down how do you start with just one. Arthur, tell them a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Arthur. I've been in the development game for about 7 years, ventured off on my own the last 5 years. I've been part of that 250 doors. I've also been in the acquisition of over 1,000 lots to date. The big question is, Ruben, where do you get started? What's the first step?
Well, I think if you are pre-approved to buy a home, you shouldn't go buy a home. And hear me out. I know a lot of people say, man, it's so hard to find a good GC. Oh, I don't have enough money to buy the lot. All those different things. But I think the best place to start is with just a simple idea that, hey, it's possible and it takes less money than you think. It's easier than you think. And you can actually end up with a nicer house or more equity instead of being negative day one.
So let me clarify. You're saying I don't have to be a GC. I don't need to have a general contracting license, nor do I have to be a builder. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
And so what does that look like? I have to essentially put all the puzzle pieces together. For somebody that works a 9 to 5, what's really cool is you built a house while working a 9 to 5. I didn't build a house. I hired the builder while working a 9 to 5, built my first house. Then I built 6 more houses on the side as a side hustle because I realized this works. And you only have to build one house really to have over 6 figures of profit. But for somebody working a 9 to 5, give me some really simple ABC 1, 2, 3. What's the first step? What do I got to do?
Okay, so
if you're in my shoes.
Let's start at like the very, very beginning stages.
Sure.
You want to go buy a house.
Yep.
All right. You go buy a house for 500 grand.
Well, I'm gonna go to the bank. I'm gonna get a pre-approval.
Yeah.
The bank's gonna tell me you can buy a house or you can get a loan up to 500 grand. I've got 40 grand in the bank. So I got 40,000 down. I can get a $500,000 loan. That means I'm at 540-ish for a purchase price. So great. Instead of buying a house with an agent, what do I got to do?
So let's just say for 540, you buy this house, you move in, you pay the agent, you pay the loan fees. Potentially, let's just say this is a new construction home or maybe a remodeled home. You're now paying the agent, the builder's profit, the lender fees. That could be anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000.
Okay.
Right? So you're paying all of those different spreads and profits. So day one, when you move into the house, you are negative equity. Because if you were to go and try to sell the house on the next day that you bought it,
I'd have to pay agents and everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So $500,000 house, I'm gonna pay 40 grand in closing costs and everything else.
so you're negative equity day one.
Sure.
But here's what we're saying, right? People say, oh, vacant land is so hard to find. I disagree. If you get that 540 purchase price, right? And you multiply it by, depends on your area, like Texas is cheaper or North Carolina versus Portland, Oregon, or San Diego, you can pay up to 25%. So 15 to 25% is your land value. If you go find a lot that's roughly 100 grand, you can build a house, move in, and be positive 50 to 100,000 instead of negative 50 to 100,000.
After paying a builder.
After paying a builder 10% fee.
All right, so I got ChatGPT, my friend. This is my new assistant.
Okay.
So this is my assistant. I said, hey, Chat, how much land is not developed in America? 5.3% of land is developed. The remaining land is undeveloped and forests, wetlands, or other natural landscapes. That means there's 95% land available in America right now. Only 5% is developed. So how much land is there in America?
So number one, do you need to be a GC? No. Why?
Because you can hire the builder to build it.
10% fee.
Yeah, I would say 10 to 12% is fair. A lot of people say, well, there's not a builder out there to do that. That's not true. You just got to make the right calls and have the right resources, right?
Yep.
Or know the right people.
Okay, so you know that you can pay 15 to 25% for the land. You know you can pay 10 to 12% of the build cost to a builder, right? What else are we missing? Construction cost? Let's break down these numbers.
Yeah, we can break it down. I'm curious. 2.4 billion acres in America. 95% is not developed. 2.2 billion acres of land.
So there's
lots of land.
So there's lots of
the
land.
question isn't, is there land? The question is how to get there. So let's start with land. Or let's just go through 7 steps. What I learned in the last 5 years. Step 1, you have finding the land, like you said. So you get a lot. There's a couple different ways you can go about getting a lot on the market, off the market. Have you bought plenty of land on the MLS?
I have.
So you can buy it on the MLS or you can buy it off the MLS. On the MLS, I have the analogy. Maybe you agree or disagree. It's the same as shopping on Craigslist. When you're buying a car, you got to look at 200 cars to find one, right? So on the MLS, there's plenty of land, but not all of it is a good deal. So that brings me to step 2, which is making sure it's a good deal, running the numbers. People call it underwriting. But the very simple thing is, does this pencil? Will this be 100,000 less than me buying a house on the MLS? Because if I have to spend 6 months to a year hiring a builder and building it out, it's got to be worth it. You've got to have some sort of equity, right?
Yeah.
So step 3, what goes after we underwrite the deal? It looks like it makes sense.
Plans.
Now you got to go draft up some plans. And who's typically involved in that?
Architect, structural engineer, and you as the coordinator or AKA adult babysitter.
Okay, so for step 3, plans, there's only one person really involved, right? Because you only need an architect. The architect will tell you who's the structural. The architect will give you the plans. The architect will coordinate everything. You just need to choose the plan you like. Okay. So go find a house that you like. Take a screenshot and say, this is the house I was planning to buy. Do you have a plan like it? Is that fair? Step 4, you got to get the permits approved. Who does that?
You do.
You and the architect, right? So step 4 and then step 5 is financing. But I think it's easy. If you're doing a personal house, let's actually break down. Can you give me a quick rundown? What does it look like to finance a personal build versus buying a house? What does it look like? Because
this is
if I'm gonna go buy a house, I have a pre-approval. I make an offer with my agent, and I tell my loan officer, hey, here it is. Here's my contract I signed. Get me a loan.
So building a home is very similar to actually buying a home because you don't have to buy the land outright. You don't have to pay cash for the land. So a lot of people think, oh, I need to own the land cash in order to build a home. Not true. You actually only need to put down 5% of the land plus the construction cost. Well, we're gonna add in the 2% for loan fees and closing costs. So total 7%. If you wanna build a $500,000 house, it'd probably be worth around $650,000. You do 7% times the 500,000. That's how much cash you need to have to get a construction loan that both funds the land and the construction.
So 500,000 times 7% is 35 grand.
Yeah.
So if I was to go buy a house on the market, I could probably buy it for 500,000 and put around 30 to 35K. It sounds like the same number. But here's the difference between the two. I want to make sure we all understand. That house that you're buying for 500 on the market is worth 500.
Yeah.
But the house you're buying off the market or building is worth 650 with the same exact down payment.
What's up, guys? Everybody keeps asking my comments, my DMs. I need help. I want to get in the game. Our team and I will help you out. Just shoot us a text message, 360-216-0323. We're going to answer every question you have, development, construction, wholesale, anything that you need. 360-216-0323. Let's get back to the video.
So now you have
because you don't have that profit margin.
Got it.
That you're paying a builder or an agent or all those different things. I guess if your end goal was to end up at a $500,000 worth house, then you would only get a loan for $400K.
You'd go build one and have got it. And your payment would be less by like $500.
Yeah. That's another really I get this question all the time. It's more expensive to own a new construction home. Not true. So during the construction process, you pay interest-only payments, typically 8% of what you draw. So if you have $400K available.
Explain what draw means.
Yeah, so if you have $400K available to build a house and you pull a $10,000 draw to pay the foundation guy, you're only gonna pay 8% on the $10,000.
So you only pay interest on the money you borrow. So let's just say it's roughly the house is gonna cost you $500K, the land was $100K, you have $400K left.
Yeah.
And you're gonna spend around $75K a month.
Yeah.
Roughly. That means every time you take 75, you pay 8% on that, which is pretty minimal. So let's go 75,000. I love my calculator. I'd use ChatGPT times 8% in a year divided by 12 months. You're paying $500 a month.
Yeah.
So for every 75,000 you take while building is $500. during the construction period, you'll probably end up paying like 5K,
Yeah.
maybe 8K.
Yep.
So really, if you say out of the 150,000, if somebody's worried about the interest they pay during construction, they're missing the bigger picture.
And on top of that, technically, it's very normal if you're smart and you build a little bit under budget, you'll have a little bit of spread left over in your budget. So let's just say you put a budget
The
line
bank's not going to take that money. So
No,
if
they
you have extra money in the bank, why wouldn't they take it? How does that work?
because of loan to cost.
Okay.
They're funding your loan based on 95% loan to cost.
Got it.
So ultimately they understand there's a spread for a builder.
Okay, so it's like a shopping budget. If I got $2,000 to go shopping and I spent $1,500, I keep the 500.
You'll keep the 500. So
Got it.
obviously you can't stretch this too far, but let's just say you put $15,000 for a foundation, but you only do a foundation for 10 grand. That 5 grand stays in your bank account at the very beginning of construction, and you can use that to pay the interest payments.
And so to clarify, the bank does the math, and they say the house is worth 500,000. The construction budget is 400. They don't care if it's more. Or if it's more, you bring the money, but it won't be more because you have obviously a contingency. You have a cushion. But if it's less, it doesn't matter because the bank feels comfortable that they're lending you 400,000 regardless. Because if you were going to go buy it on the MLS and they lend you 400,000, the good thing is they know it's worth 500 or 550. They're comfortable with the equity.
And
Got it.
most of the
So-
time it'll come in at 650 when it's fully done and finished. They like to be conservative on their appraisals. Right?
Okay, so step 5 is going to be financing. My understanding.
So to recap, guys, land was step 1.
Yep.
Underwriting was step 2.
Running the numbers.
Running the numbers was
Okay.
2. 3 was plans and design.
Okay.
Right. 4 was
Approval.
Was the permit approvals. Right.
Okay.
5 now is financing.
But on financing, want to make sure we're good. If you can go afford a $500,000 house on the MLS, you could go build a house for $500,000 that's worth $650.
Yeah.
And the house will be bigger, nicer. You
Yep.
could if you want. So a $500,000 house that's 1,800 square feet, you could go build a 2,200 square foot house. Is that fair? Let's say
Exactly,
10%
exactly.
bigger.
If you wanted
That's a
to
rule
build
of thumb.
if you wanted to
But
build
watch,
a cheaper house.
but let's say on a $500,000 house that you would buy on the MLS, you could go build for 400, and now your payment's going to be like $300 to $400 less a month. So you'll have 100 grand of equity, $300 less of payments, and you only put in 30 to 35K like you were going to go buy it on the MLS. The only advantage you have is you've created some equity because you manage the builder, and you didn't have a real estate agent paying them 2.5% of, well, you don't pay an agent when you buy, but really it's just the equity in the deal from the construction.
Yep.
Managing the 7 steps, which we're on step 5. Step 6 would be construction. And again, all it comes down to is finding the right builder, the qualified builder. Can you give maybe 1 or 2 ways to know if somebody's qualified?
A builder?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, when I'm talking to builders and I'm entering a new market, we've done deals pretty much nationwide, 17 different states. And what we've noticed is the builders that are cost plus have been the best ones. And what that means is they'll charge you exactly what their subcontractor charges, and they'll add on a 10 to 12% fee on top.
Okay, so what if they say, well, it cost me $500,000, the house is worth $500,000. So how would you do that, and how would you make sure that you're safe? Do they just go, oh, whatever I build it for, you pay me 10% on top? Or is there like a certain structure?
Well, the way that we mitigate that issue to make sure we don't end up in that problem is we get multiple bids.
So you require the builder get multiple bids, put a budget together, and sign off on the budget.
Yeah.
And then maybe have like a contingency, a safety net.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, what I noticed is you tell them that this is what we're building and we're not making changes. If there's any changes to the price, they have to be notified. We have to sign it and agree to it.
Change order. That's
A change
what it's
order.
called, yeah.
Agree to it on paper
Yeah.
if we decide to do an upgrade. Otherwise, they got to stick to it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
ultimately, Arthur, the way that we make sure we pick the right builder, right? Number 1, experience, track record. And oftentimes, when somebody goes to build their first house, I would strongly recommend that the builder they work with, they build a plan that builder has already built and is very familiar with the budget.
So that's the nugget right there. Make sure the builder has built a certain plan,
Yeah.
and they've built it multiple times, and they have the numbers on that plan. So when they have those numbers,
They're not walking in blind and you're test guinea
They're a
pig.
GC that does remodel bathrooms,
Yeah.
and they have a license so they can go build a house. No way.
Yeah.
You want to find somebody that's already doing it, and you find that right person.
Typically, what that's called is like a boutique builder.
But a small
5 to 10 houses a year.
Yeah, and I would say you want to find somebody that's a small business owner. A big corporate builder will, one, either charge you 20%, or two, won't even offer to build for you, right?
Or three, they'll give you a lot, upcharge you probably 50% up on that lot. They make all the profit on the lot, and then they kind of just the construction is, you know.
Okay,
whatever.
and then we got step 7, which would be refinance,
Well,
or
step 6
was construction. So we got that.
Oh, yeah,
so step
construction.
6
We
is
talked about
construction, builders. We just went through that. Step 7 is either refinance or sell. So we didn't talk about this on the finance. Does that mean after I finish the house, I have to go get another loan to live in it? Or how does that work?
Well, yes and no, because every bank is different, and I've heard there's banks that do double closing.
So what would you recommend?
I would recommend a single closing owner builder loan. So they provide the construction, and then typically the rate floats down from an 8% interest only to a current actual mortgage interest rate, and it's a regular 30-year mortgage.
So if I understand correctly, you do one closing when you're buying the lot. You have to give them the plans and the budget from the builder, and they say, this is a 31-year mortgage. 1 year of interest only to build it, and 30 years of a mortgage. They'll charge you an interest rate which is current, maybe plus 1%. So if it's a 6% rate, they'll charge you 7%.
Only though.
Interest only. And then when you finish the property or the build and they come inspect it, then they convert it and it just floats down to the current rate.
Yeah.
So if the rate is declining, you'll get a better rate. But what happens if the rate shoots through the roof and it goes to 9%? What happens then?
There's a safety net where they can charge you a maximum, I think, 1 point, right?
So they'll cap it out at that interest that you agreed to when you signed the docs.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so it's one loan, one closing. You pay the fees there.
Only 7% down total.
Is there ever a time where you have to do two loans, meaning one loan to build, one loan to refi?
There are those type of loan products, but at that point, you're paying double the closing fees.
But what point? When does it go to that new product? At 900, 850, or what's that?
Conforming loan amount.
What's that threshold so we know?
So if you're building a more expensive house that's above, typically I think right now the conforming loan limit's $806,000. So if you want to build a house that's nicer than $806,000, you're going into a whole new territory of loan product. It's called
because it's riskier.
Jumbo loan. It's a higher interest rate. It's based off your bank statements and stuff like that. But I think that even me, I'm approved for more than that conforming loan limit. And even now, I'm building my third personal house right now, and I'm still building at that $806,000 max because that's the best bang for the buck.
Okay, cool. So we got those 7 steps. Before we wrap up, I'd love to just ask you a question. Maybe you'll share it, maybe you won't. So you said this is your third house.
Yeah.
Can you give me your first, well, let's say your first build ever. What did you make on your first build? I'm assuming it wasn't a $53,000. So that was an investment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hard money loan.
So how about
I had bad credit.
Let's share your first personal build, because now we have 53K, and then share, because you said 3. Then share your current house. What's your situation there? And then share the one you're doing right now and what's your goal with that one, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. So ultimately, guys, what I recommend is nobody ever get a hard money loan when they're first starting out.
Just for your first build.
Yeah, for the real estate investing career.
Because
here's what happened to me. I had to put a lot more money down on that deal, and it wasn't even my money, it was an investor, right? Number 2, I had to pay a ton of extra interest because of my lack of inexperience, and the project went longer. Then time sitting on the market, right? I was paying 12% interest based on the full loan amount, so not on draw. So all those 3 things like almost killed the deal.
Okay.
Where I should have made 150K on the house, maybe 125, I made 50 because of all the extra points, interest, and time on market that it sat and paying those interest only.
How about
payments.
your personal house?
My personal house, think about it like this: 7% down, interest only based on what you draw, converts to a 30-year mortgage, right? All of those big benefits made $250,000. Well,
wow.
Well,
what was the house?
$50,000 down, so $200K profit.
So $200,000 of profit. What was the house worth when you sold it?
760.
So 200,000 on 760, 500,000. You had a 23% equity.
Yeah.
Or profit.
Yeah.
That's great. So like we said, 20%.
Yeah.
So if you want to build a nicer house, you can have 20% on 500,000 or 20. Man, that's more. That's a lot more.
Yeah.
That's 40%. I can't do my math right. So 200,000 on 500,000 is going to be 40%. So you had a 40%.
Cash on cash return?
No, 40% just equity.
Wow.
Your house cost you 500, you sold it for 750, 200 net.
I think a healthy margin for everybody to
20%
aim for is 20%.
So that'll be 100K.
40%, yeah, if you
Cool.
get a really good deal, if the area is really growing and there's a lot of new construction happening, yeah, you
And
might make 30, 40%.
You didn't share it here, but that house actually did what for you?
It got me out of debt.
So you got out of $250,000 of debt with one house.
Yeah,
So let's do this.
If you guys watch one of my other podcasts, I tell the whole story.
I'd love to pick your brain on it. So on the next one, we'll pick your brain on your story on exactly how you did it. And even if you have the one podcast on it, I'd love to get my perspective and kind of just pick your brain and see what it is.
Yeah, but ultimately, got in a lot of debt through a business and paid it off with new construction through this personal house game. And the best part is, guys, I paid zero tax, zero capital gains on it, because the IRS allows up to 500 grand if you're married filing jointly of zero capital gains if you've lived there for 2 years out of the last 5.
Awesome. Cool, guys. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Ruben the Builder, he's crushing it. I got to just ask you a ton of questions today, and we got to learn the 7 steps. So like, subscribe, share. You'll see us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and then he's all over Instagram. He's posting everything that he's doing, so super cool. Young, under 30.
Arthur the Developer. So follow us on Instagram. We're posting day to day. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Take care.